Let me say a little something about my presidential candidacy. A few weeks ago, I put out a video about my thoughts on American politics, and I said that if I were president, the first thing I would do was end the two-party system. I would do whatever I could to make sure that the Democratic and Republican parties were disbanded, dismembered. I see them as corporations. They're nonprofit corporations, and they're running the whole show. And all they do is divide us. So that was kind of that thing that set me off. But I have to be honest, I've thought about running for president before. It's one of those things where uh, I love synchronicities and little different coincidences and things like that. And I have to think about my relationship with the other presidents and my relation with my hometown and my hometown's relationships. Yeah, I live in Sarasota, Florida, and we make news every now and then. But back a little over 100 years ago, not Will Rogers, but John Ringling bought Bird Key. There was a house on there called the New Edsall Castle, which architecturally looks very similar to the White House. So John started reaching out to President Harding, trying to convince him to make that the Winter White House. Even on St. Armand's Key and Lido Key, they're all the streets are named after presidents and all that stuff. So he was really working toward that. The challenge was that Harding died, and he did not make it. He died in 1923, 101 years ago. But that vision was there, that Sarasota would be home to a president. So since then, at least in my lifetime since then, every president except Nixon has visited Sarasota. And I was born into Nixon's presidency. About 2 weeks after I was born, he took money off the gold standard, and it's been a fiat currency ever since then. So that's a whole other story. I wrote a book called Money, Sex, Power, and Faith, Questioning the Building Blocks of Civilization, and I mention a lot that there, and I think I even mentioned that in my book about ABC squared economics. But either way, since then, from Ford on, every president has been to Sarasota, and some of them have been with, rather remarkable and what do you call circumstances. For instance, George W. Bush was here on September 11th, 2001. He was reading at Booker Elementary, a book called My Pet Goat, and that school happens to be just, a mile or two down the road. I have substituted there before. I did not read My Pet Goat, but I have worked at that school. So it was interesting that he was in my hometown on that fateful day. And I actually rode through New York the day before. And the fog was so thick I couldn't see the World Trade Center. And so I missed my last chance to see it then. So there was that kind of weird situation. Barack Obama, I saw him when he came through town on his first campaign. And it just so happens he and I have the same birthday. He is exactly 10 years older than me. And then, of course, Trump, he is so praised in Sarasota. There are so many Republicans here who adore him. The Republican Party of Sarasota, they called him the Statesman of the Year twice, two different occasions. And I actually had a ticket to go see him speak on that second occasion at the Van Wezel. It was a few blocks from my house, but I didn't really want to go see him speak. So I just stayed home and did other things. But he also, the last guy I worked for before I took my year off of using money was named Andy Bottolato. And I was doing some research work for him and things like that. And the last time he paid me was he had to scrape for change in his car. It was really sad. But it contributed to my wanting to live for a year without money because I saw that guys like him were so bad with it. I figured I could do better without it. And I did. I did great. But anyway, so that guy later on went to work with Steve Bannon. And he started this We Build a Wall thing, this whole scam, and they scam people out of millions of dollars. So he's got like a 36-month sentence for that now. So there's that relation. Of course, I met the guy, Brian. Oh, was it Brian or Brad? It was Brad. Brad, he said that his house on Casey Key was the address Steve Bannon used to call that his home so that he could commit voter fraud and vote in for two different states. So there's a lot of different things. And of course, recently, Trump has merged with a company in order to get publicly traded DJT, and that company is based here in Sarasota. So there's a lot of ties in like that, and that's a lot of synchronicities. I get that. Maybe a lot of coincidences. I was also cast as Will Rogers in the Will Rogers Follies. And so for the last several years, I've been enamored with Will Rogers, and I now have a video series based on his political humor and my motorcycle trip across country and back to explore his legacy. Just amazing person who in 1928 was the only person in history to speak at both the Democratic and Republican conventions. And Life magazine named him as their presidential candidate for the anti-bunk party, to get the bunk out of politics. So since getting to know him, it's been in my mind that at least in 2028, 100 years later, the anti-bunk party should make a comeback. And we should probably do what we can to get the bunk out of politics. So it has been in my mind, something I'm working toward of doing that. Now, when Will Rogers ran, he said that he'd gladly accept the office of candidacy, but if he were elected, he'd resign immediately. I don't know if I would resign or not. If in 2028 it comes and America says, yeah, we want this guy. But this year, I had something I was moving toward this year that I want to talk about, but it got shifted. And I had my spring break where I had 5 days camping in the woods, most of it all by myself in the woods. And so looking at the political spectrum right now, I don't have anybody I want to vote for. And it's frustrating, you know. I would love to have someone I could want to vote for. But usually in America, we only get to vote against people. We don't really have the right to vote for people we want. We can only vote against them. So that's where we are. And I figured, you know what? Maybe America doesn't need a politician to be president. Maybe he doesn't need a businessman, you know. Maybe he doesn't need to be a legacy name. Maybe America needs just a man, just a guy. Maybe America needs a poet. And so I was thinking a lot of these things, like, wouldn't that be something? Now, I'm all for Amanda Gorman. I know she wants to be president one of these days, and I know she's going to do fantastic, but she's not eligible right now. And since my intention was to do this not last motorcycle tour, but this is my 4th motorcycle tour this year. I'll be riding from Sarasota to Seattle. And I thought, you know, that could make an interesting campaign, being able to get out there and stuff and you know, recognize that I have no delusions. Well, I have one delusion, that I could win. You know, in the Avengers movie, the one where Stephen Strange, Dr. Strange, his name is Steve too, isn't that cool? So Dr. Strange is like sitting there meditating, looking at all these different possibilities of how things could work out, and there's only one in which the Avengers win. And I have that one delusion way back here in the back of my mind that I could actually win. So there's one delusion in there, but pretty much there's not many delusions that I could win. You know, I know we live in a system that is completely owned by the Democratic and Republican Party. So it's just very little chance of me, especially coming in as probably a write-in candidate. It's just not going to happen. However, I have to think about how many people run in the New York City Marathon thinking they're going to win it. Probably not many. And so for me, at least running for president, I don't think I'm going to win, but you know, at least I want to give these guys a little something to race against, you know? And I have given a lot of thought. Years ago, I wrote a poem called If I Were Elected President, and I talked about the idea that the one, I think, radical notion here, I think the United States is ready for a 4th branch of government, using the technology we have at our disposal right now that we didn't have in 1782 or 84, whenever it was. They drafted the Constitution and such. And I've sat on 3-legged stools. I've eaten at 3-legged tables, and it's very wobbly and it's very imbalanced. And that's the way I see our government right now. And the way our government right now is the people of America do not have a voice at all. All right, the executive branch certainly doesn't speak for us. The judicial branch, most of us don't trust them anymore. And of course, the legislative branch, yeah, they don't do anything. All they do is defeat each other, because it's just the 2-party system, and it's just fight, 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 itchy and scratchy, show. So that's our political system. So the government doesn't do anything. So I think we create a 4th branch that allows us to be able to give Americans a say as to what those other branches do. So that'd be my first thing. Doing that, also orchestrating ABC squared economics in order to make a more efficient way to channel the economic energy that we create, and do it in a more balanced way, bottoms up instead of top down. So ABC Squared Economics is about artistry, business, citizenry, and community. It's about a heart, mind, body, spirit approach. It's about looking at all the different traditions of time and orchestrating the use of the energy we're creating in a way that we can use better instead of this trickle down stuff. So those are the things I kind of run on, which are way radical, and a lot of Americans are not even ready to even think about that. So, and this year I decided to focus on what I am as a songwriter and a poet. I think I'm a much better poet than I really would be president at this point. And this year I am releasing a song every single week. I've recorded all of the songs almost that I've written, and I'm really pleased to be able to get them out there. And they'll be on Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube, wherever you listen to music. And if you like anything about me, please listen to them. Please share them with your people. Put them on your playlists. Comment on them. If you don't like them, you rag on them all you want, but let other people listen to them and let them decide that. And this year, again, I'll be writing to Seattle and Sarasota. And I just don't have the time to do all this campaign nonsense. But if you're sick of the way things are and you want somebody to write in, you're welcome to use my name. I don't think it'll come to much. There's only a few states that write-ins mean something unless you actually register in them, and I have not done that. So I'm not going to be running for president this year, but I am going to be running for poet. And hopefully I connect with you somewhere along the line. I'll be leaving in June, hopefully returning in September, and we'll be riding through a number of states to Seattle and back. So it's going to be quite the trip. I hope one day we can create a electoral system that works for all of us. The one we have right now doesn't work, and there's just not a lot I can do from where I am, So I'm on very little money. I got nothing really to compete with these guys on. But it's always fun to at least think about the possibilities. And, like I said, 2028 is just a few years down the road. But for now, I'm just going to be the poet that I can be and maybe talk smack here and there, saying a little something about this and that along the way. And I hope it speaks to you. I hope you appreciate all of this. And let me know your thoughts down below or wherever you want to on the interwebs and all that. Anyway, have a lovely day. Thank you so much for spending all this time hearing my rant. And all the best to all of you. See you out there on the road.